Welcome to Garden Delights. I'm Susan Howington, Family Consumer Science Agent with the Henry County Cooperative Extension, partnership with the University of Georgia Extension. Today we're going to talk about zucchini, and we're going to hear from Frank Hancock, our Agriculture and Natural Resource Agent. He's going to talk more about squash. He's going to tell you a little bit about how to keep those things off that squash that you don't want on in the summer. So we'll see you back in just a little bit on Garden Delights. Welcome back to Garden Delights. Today we're going to be talking about zucchini squash, and it's one of my favorite squashes. I love the yellow squash too, but I think my tops is zucchini squash. And I guess my husband doesn't like squash, so this is the reason why I kind of lean toward the zucchini, because he'll eat this as long as we do something like it's just cooked just a little bit where it has a little bit of crisp to it. And I think it's a great squash to eat because I love the color of it, but it's so good for us. It's low in calories. It's about, if you sliced a zucchini, which about a cup of it is about 20 calories. So you could eat a lot if you're only eating a cup, which is 20 calories. You could eat 2 cups, which would only be 40 calories. So I could say that this is very low in fat. It also is low in sodium. It is low in cholesterol free as far as that goes. So tops right now, this is looking a very good squash to eat. It also has some vitamin C in it, and it also has a good source of potassium. So put this on your list because it is something good. And if you're not growing in your garden, think about it growing into it next year. Or if you're buying in the grocery store for some squash, look at zucchini because it's coming in right now, and that's what you want to do. Let's talk about selection. When you're looking at zucchini, if you're growing in the garden, make sure you're picking firm plants. The firm fruit needs to be firm. You don't want any bruises. You don't want any decaying, because that tells you the fruit probably inside the vegetable is going to be going bad. So you want to make sure that you're looking at that too. Also, look at the shiny part of it when you're buying at the grocery store. You also have a little bit of prickly about it, and that's a good thing, and you're looking for that part on the skin part too. So when you're selecting it, look for in the grocery store, look for those shiny, firm, no bruises, no decaying, because that's what you want to buy at the grocery store. Now when you're going to store it in your refrigerator, it will store in your refrigerator for 4 to 5 days, but you also need to put it in some kind of plastic bag, because that's going to prolong it to 4 to 5 days. Now if you're not going to eat it after the 4 to 5 days, we need to figure out a way what you're going to prolong it even longer, and that means putting it into thinking about canning it or freezing it for later, and we have great information in our office on telling you how to preserve it. So we want to make sure that we're storing it. Now if you're going to cook it, we tell you about 2 days is what you want to do as far as cooking it to keep in your refrigerator. So preparing your zucchini squash, you want to make sure that you're going to wash it. You're going to cut both ends off, depending on what you're going to use, but you do want to cut both ends off. And there's so many ways to cook zucchini, but today we're going to do a crunchy zucchini round, and it's really simple, very tasty. So when you're coming in, you're hot, you want something to eat, this can make you just what you need to have something pretty quick. So when we come back on Garden Delights, we're going to talk more about zucchini, but let's hear what Frank has to say on squash.
Okay, today we're going to talk a little bit about squash. Before I get started talking about squash, I want to talk about something in the same family. If you recall, in some previous episodes we talked about mixing up our soil mix and getting our containers ready to grow things in. But I just want to point out, this is a pumpkin right here. We're going to try to grow a big pumpkin this year, and this pumpkin is planted in some of that soil mix that we mixed up. This pumpkin right here is planted in just the raised bed with some commercial garden soil in it. And I just want you to see the difference in these two pumpkins. They were planted on the same day. They've been watered exactly the same amount, and the one in the mix is just doing better. I mean, we're going to work on this one and get it going, but it's obviously a little bit deficient in some of the things that it might need. So just pointing that out to you. Now, the pumpkin is in the same family with the squash. It can suffer from some of the same problems squash can suffer from. But what I've got in this bed in front of me here is some zucchini squash that we set out a week or so ago. So it's just now taking a hold and recovering from the stress of being transplanted. You would plant squash in a hill, and we're talking summer squash. Now, you'd plant it in a hill. Most folks will put 2 or 3 seeds in the hill, and then when it comes up, they'll pick the best one to let it grow. We put a little 5, 10, 15 fertilizer around the hill to give it a good start. It's going to spread out. So normally you would plant these about 4 feet apart. Since I had this bed here and I had 5 plants, I planted all 5 of them in this bed. That's the beauty of having your own garden. You can just plant things wherever you want to. But normally these would do better if they were about 4 feet apart to give them room to grow. And the squash is it's going to produce here. Some of the things that we look at and we talk about with squash. I had a lady in my office the other day said somebody told her she couldn't grow any squash here because of squash vine borers, and that's just not true. You have to pay attention to squash vine borers. They come out about this time of the year. Once the thing starts blooming, they'll be attracted to the squash plant. They like the squash, like the zucchini and the crookneck squash. It's got the big vine. They also love pumpkins, and so you have to watch for them. The squash vine borer is a little black and red moth. Some people confuse it with a wasp. It looks like it's flying around stinging the stem on these squash as they get going. What it's actually doing is laying eggs. The difference between a squash vine borer moth and most other moths is a squash vine borer flies in the daytime. So if you see this little black and red bee-looking critter flying around your squash, that's a squash vine borer. And when you see that, you need to start looking at your plants, because that little brown, tiny little egg that gets laid on the stem, it can be wiped off. It's squash vine borers are kind of hard to catch up with in the daytime. They're pretty agile. But at night, they sleep on top of the leaf. So if you wanted to go after them, you could go after them at night. And if you see that little black insect sitting on top of the leaf, you can get him with a fly swatter. You can spray some Pyganic on it, or whatever you happen to be using to get rid of them. So the main thing about squash vine borers, we grow 2 crops of them a year. So you really, you know, you talk about timing, and we plant them a little bit later and miss the squash vine borer. Well, he'll be back a little bit later also. So you really just have to pay attention, and we're not going to allow the squash vine borer to have our squash, because we like squash, and that's just all there is to it. You can get other things, little powdery mildew, several insects can get on your squash that can be controlled with organic means. But the main one that can really hit you hard all of a sudden would be the squash vine borer. Once that egg hatches out, it's not but about a week until or after that egg is laid, it's not but about a week till it hatches out and that larva bores into that stem. And then once he bores into the stem, the plant can just wilt overnight. If you catch it in time, you can split the stem long ways, and you can actually pick him out and throw some dirt over it, and the plant it'll recover from it. But if you're not paying attention, he can get rid of your plant pretty quick. So that's sort of what we're talking about today. It's squash likes a pH around 6 to 6.5, somewhere in that neighborhood. It likes warm soil, so 65 to 70 degrees is time to plant it. You can't really plant it real early in the season because it's susceptible to cold soil that will cause problems. So that's about what we know about growing squash here. And if you don't have yours planted yet, you need to be getting it planted. And don't worry about the squash vine borers. If you pay attention, they're going to lose. I think what we're going to do now is go see what Susan is cooking in the kitchen.
Welcome back to Garden Delights. Today we're talking about zucchini, and we're going to be making a crunchy zucchini round. And you know, I think about zucchini, I think about people wanting to put it on the grill, steaming it, just doing different things, put it in the microwave. But you know, zucchini, you can eat it just raw, just like it is. And that's what we're going to do today. So this is a very simple, easy step recipe, and even if you want to think of it as hors d'oeuvres or appetizer, you really don't have to even think of it that way. It can be part of your vegetable part of your plate when you're putting this recipe together. So what we want to do now, I'm going to kind of go through and just tell you what I have in front of me, and then I'm going to go ahead and slice up the zucchini. The recipe is going to ask you for about 2 zucchinis, and I'm going to go at least do 1 so I can show you how to put one together. But it will make about 2, taking 2 medium zucchinis, it will make about that. So, and you want to make sure your zucchini's firm because you don't want it limp when you're making this as far as the rounds go. But we're going to do a little bit of salt and pepper on it. And I'll do that after I slice the zucchini up. But what we have in front of us now is this is some goat cheese, and this is about 3 ounces of goat cheese, and this is the crumbled up goat cheese, and you can buy it solid too, like a whole piece, and then you can cut it up and crumble it yourself if you want to. But this is already pre-crumbled when I purchased it. And then also we have 2 tablespoons of finely chopped red onion, and this is 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese, and we have a tablespoon of parsley, and then this is sun-dried tomatoes, and they are in the oil, and that's what we're going to use to build around our zucchini slices. That's going to make these crunchy but make them look really nice as far as our rounds. So my zucchini, I have washed it, and you don't want to wash your vegetables until you get ready to serve them because you don't want them to go into mush. So we're just going to take it and cut both ends off, and I am going to cut it maybe about 1/4 inch on the slices, and once I kind of get those going, I am going to lay them on my platter, but I am going to salt and pepper just a little bit because it needs just a little bit to make it tasty. And you can see this is going to make just this 1 zucchini right here. It's going to make a lot of rounds. So like I said, the recipe is going to call for 2, but if you feel like 1 is going to be enough, please only cut 1 up. And you can save your ingredients and bring them back out the next day and have the same thing. That is if you don't mind having leftovers. And that's one thing I grew up on is leftovers, so I never frown to any leftovers. Especially when it's something very tasty. So as you can see, zucchinis are shaped different sizes. A lot of times they're going to be all the way the same size all the way down. Some are going to be smaller, and you can see this one's pretty much, it's pretty uniform. So it just depends on your used zucchini and the size. You don't want to let it go over as far as when you're growing them, because if you let it go too far on the before you take them off the vine, you'll have a real seedy zucchini, and you don't want that. So, so you're looking at something like this, and what I'm going to do is just kind of arrange these on this board for just a second, because I was wanting to put the salt and pepper on the board because I want my platter to look really nice. So we're going to do that first. So I'm just going to take a little bit of salt, and I'm just going to salt each one of them, give just a little taste to them on the salt. And you don't want to go overboard, but you want just a little bit of salt taste to them. And you know, this recipe is going to be raw, so we're not going to bake or we're not going to broil anything. But if you are not a person that likes raw vegetables as much as some people do, you can take this and put it in the broiler if you would like to. And with the cheese, you can have it melted just a little bit. That would just heat it up just a little bit too. If you're buying them at the grocery store, normally the zucchinis usually in the refrigerated area. If you're growing in your garden, you're going to have it at room temperature. So just remember that it's going to be cooler when you buy it at the grocery store. So we're just going to put just a little bit of pepper on all of them. And I love cracked pepper, so we're going to just make sure we get them all covered. And this is going to be the start of our crunchy rounds. I think I have a good bit of pepper. That looks good. And what I want to do now is I'm going to go ahead and place them on my platter just to make them look nice. And like I say, this could be like a dish that you want everybody to take around and pick from at a dinner, or you could have as an appetizer. And what I like about it is when the vegetables are in season, it's a perfect time to think out of the box of what you normally are doing in your kitchen as far as cooking, and think of ways that you can do something different with a vegetable. Because sometimes, and I'm the same way, we tend to do it over and over the same way. And so maybe this will be a different twist for your family to try. So as you can see, this is just one zucchini, and this will make enough for 2 zucchini, so when you're slicing it up. But I'm just going to do one for right now just to show you what we're going to do. So what we're going to do, I'm going to move these over to my board just so I have something to wipe my hands on. Okay, these are sun-dried tomatoes. So we're going to take a sun-dried tomato, and it is in oil, and what we're going to do is we're going to top each one of those zucchinis with one of those, and each and you can kind of pick and choose where you want to put it, because some of the tomatoes are going to be bigger than others, but you're just going to put it on top of there. And these are really tasty. You can buy the sun-dried tomatoes also that are sun-dried without the oil. So if you don't want the ones with the oil, you can also do it that way too. And some are going to be bigger than others, so just kind of randomly pick it up and decide where you want to put it as far as on those zucchini tops. And to me, it makes a nice color too to the zucchini, and just adds another little texture to it. So I'm going to just keep adding to it. And if you needed to, you could even cut them in halves if you had to, if you needed to do that. The oil is just going to give a good taste to it. And you can buy these anywhere in the grocery store, usually over in the produce area. So I'm just going to keep adding. And you know, you could do this. It doesn't have to be when zucchini's in season. If you're asked to bring something to some place as far as an appetizer, this would be a great choice, something different from what people normally see. So you'll want to just think about that when you're putting this all together. So we've got one on every one of them. I'm just going to wipe my hands just a little bit. Now, in order for this to keep on top, you could drizzle a little bit of the olive oil, but I'm going to take just a little bit of the oil from this, and I'm going to use it, and the recipe is going to tell you about a tablespoon, so I'm just going to get just enough, because all I really want is enough for this to coat the onions, the parsley, and the goat cheese. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this all into one container, and we're just going to mix this on top. And this is about 3 ounces of goat cheese. And this is about 2 tablespoons of finely chopped onion. And we're going to mix it all together. And as you can see, this is going to make a lot. Now we're going to hold out on the Parmesan cheese because I'm going to use it to top the last part of the zucchini mix. So I'm just going to use that little bit of oil. And all I'm trying to do is to get this to incorporate together. So when I put it on top, it doesn't just totally come off of it. So we want to make sure it sticks on top. So I'm going to and I may just get just a little bit more. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. That should do it. And so it's going to say about a tablespoon of olive oil. And you can drizzle it, like I said, on top, but I wanted some way to keep it where it combines on top. So what we're going to do is take a little spoonful, and I'm just going to try to get it on each one of them. and you want to just kind of push down on it, because the sun-dried tomatoes, they're very moist, and they also have some give to them, so you can push down on the sun-dried tomatoes a little bit. So you just want to get enough cheese, because you want to make sure everybody's tasting a little bit of cheese, and the onions, and also a little bit of parsley on there. So I'm just going to keep adding those on there. And doesn't this look good? And if you could smell the onions in this, it smells really good. And today I didn't use garlic, but I came very close to adding me some garlic to it, and you could if you wanted to. So we're just going to keep adding. I'm just going to spoon a little bit more. And like I said, if you really wanted to, I'm going to see if I can do double time on this one. If you really wanted to, you could put this in your oven and also heat it up just slightly. But if you just picked your zucchinis out of the garden, they're going to be room temperature anyway, so that's a good thing. And you know, if you buy it at the grocery store, it's going to be usually in the produce section. It's going to be cold. Now, if you're at a farmer's market, more than likely it's going to be at room temperature. Just make sure you get them at home to put them in your refrigerator like you need to, and keep them in the refrigerator up to 4 to 5 days. So I have just a little bit more to go, and like I said, you can see this is going to be able to do like another zucchini too. So you'll have enough, and I'm really putting a lot of cheese on these, but you can put as much as you want on each one of them. And it smells really, really, really good. I got a couple more to go. And then I'm going to wipe my hands up before I put the other parts on there. This cheese is very soft. So the goat cheese is very soft, and it sticks very well to the tomatoes. Now what you want to do is come back and just add a little bit of texture at the top. So I'm just going to kind of go through and just sprinkle just a little bit of the Parmesan cheese on top. And this is just going to give it a different texture than what we are seeing just besides the regular cheese. So we're just going to go back and do that. And it's not going to take a whole lot to do. You just want to get a little bit on there. And then you can push down just a little bit also to make sure it's not going to totally fall off. And then, like I said, if you really want to toast it, you could also put it in your broiler, heat it up just a little bit, and it could be tasty that way too. Get 2 more over here. Okay. Wipe my hands. And so this is your crunchy zucchini rounds. Easy to make, easy, and to me it just adds a lot of good color with those tomatoes on top. And so just letting them sit there and then trying them, you're going to really like them because they are tasty. It gives another flair to that zucchini. And you know, zucchini, you can do so many good things with it. You know, just don't forget, there are some other options out there. A lot of people like to take zucchini and make zucchini spaghetti out of it. And it's really good too. So just think about all the neat ways you could take that zucchini and make it into different tastes for you. And try this one because I think you really will like it. We'll see you back on Garden of Lights, and we'll have Frank come in and taste this crunchy zucchini browns. Welcome back to Garden of Lights. We have Frank with us, and Frank, I know you've been talking about squash, but now we're going to eat the real deal. These are called crunchy zucchini rounds.
Crunchy zucchini rounds. Looks like squash on the half shell.
Hey, I think that's a good deal. That's a good deal. Well, I'm going to go ahead and touch it with my fingers. I'm going to give you a couple of them and let you try them. They're very tasty. It's a different twist. I'm going to grab me one too. It's a different twist than what we are used to eating on zucchini. What do you think? It gives a little taste to it. You have that raw, crunchy vegetable, but you have a good taste to it.
It's good.
I'm going to inhale it.
Well, I could have done that. I was trying to be polite. Just
I know
eat
it, and
half
mine was
of it.
small, so I decided I was going to hell mine.
That's good.
Very good. The cheese is very creamy.
But I am a little disappointed. We've been talking about squash. I looked on the internet. Pumpkin pie. If you get it out of a can, it's not pumpkin, it's squash.
Really?
It's not. Check it out. I mean, that's what the internet said, must be true.
Interesting.
It's squash. They grow squash and they can it and they call it 100% pumpkin.
That is
And
very
that's what you
interesting.
make pumpkin pies out of. So
They're fooling us then.
So squash is really, if you like pumpkin, squash is better than you think it is because that's what you're eating when you're eating a pumpkin pie.
Interesting. Very
That's
interesting.
that's all the knowledge I have. I'm eating now.
Okay, that sounds good. Great recipe, easy to make, very, very tasty. The tomatoes just add to the taste too. So check out the website for the recipe. Put this on your list to make. Frank and I will see you back next time on Guard the Lights.